Hi, we are from Taylor's Girl Up. Today, we'll be reading an extract of Fantastically Great Women Who Changed the World, written by Kate Pankhurst. How did they become so fantastically amazing and great? The women in this book didn't set out to be thought of as great. They achieved extraordinary things simply by following their hearts, talents, and dreams. They didn't listen when people said they couldn't do something. They dared to be different, and some of them couldn't resist a crazy adventure or three. So, without further ado, let's get right into the book. Jane Austen. Shh! When her first book was published, British writer Jane Austen couldn't tell anyone she was the author. In 1811, people thought it wasn't right for a woman to have a job, no matter how talented they were. The books Jane wrote were so heartbreaking, romantic, and thrilling that they are still enjoyed 200 years later. They are some of the best stories ever created. In secret letters to her sister, Jane writes of having her own heart broken, just like the heroines she wrote about, by a man called Tom Lefroy. The two weren't allowed to marry because Jane's family was not rich. With no husband, Jane had to rely on her family for money until her books became popular.
Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks stood up for herself and others by sitting down. Taking the bus home in Montgomery, Alabama in December 1955, she had no idea she was about to do something amazing. At the time, strict laws kept white and black people separate. This was called segregation. One law said that if a bus got busy, black people had to give up their seats for white people. When there were no seats left on the bus, the driver asked Rosa if she was going to give up her seat for a white passenger. But Rosa thought to herself, "Why should I move?" Rosa did not budge. She didn't argue or make a fuss. Even when she was arrested, she knew she didn't need to shout for a point to be made, that the rules were wrong and unfair. News of Rosa's arrest spread quickly. Soon, other black people decided to stop using buses until the law was changed. Eventually, that law and many other unfair laws were changed. When Rosa refused to move, she took an important step towards making the lives of black and white people equal.
Frida Kahlo. Mexican artist Frida Kahlo's life wasn't always easy, but she turned her experience into unique and wonderful works of art. In 1925, aged 18, Frida was training to be a doctor when she was in a serious traffic accident. Her injuries meant that she would never be well enough to finish medical school. While recovering in the hospital, Frida began painting pictures of herself, and her life changed forever. Painting helped Frida to feel better. She decided that she wouldn't waste another moment of life. She would paint it instead. Frida laughed a lot, but she always painted herself looking very serious. This was because she wanted to find more unusual ways to show what she was feeling. So, instead, she painted curious images as clues. People were very interested in Frida because she used her art to say exactly what she thought. She didn't want to hide anything about herself, something unusual for a woman at the time. This is why Frida exaggerated her eyebrows and facial hair in her paintings. Frida was very proud of being a Mexican woman and always wore colorful, traditional clothing, jewelry, and elaborate hairstyles. Frida painted over 200 artworks, which are now famous all over the world. But over her lifetime, her health gradually became worse. Even when she was very ill, Frida still wanted to live life to the fullest. In her last painting, A Still Life of Watermelons, she wrote the words, "Viva la vida!" This means long live life. Frida had a truly unique way of looking at the world. It was this that made her one of the most important artists of all time.
Coco Chanel. Fashion designer Gabrielle Chanel, or Coco to her friends, opened her first shop in Paris, France in 1910. At that time, women dressed in a very formal way. Coco didn't think this suited the changing lives of women. It was time for a new approach to fashion. So, Coco snip, and snipped different parts from clothing, making them into garments for the modern women to do whatever she pleased in. The results of Coco's snip, and snipping paved the way for how we dress today. In 1914, Coco used lightweight fabric, previously only ever used to make men's underwear, to make active clothes for women. Before Coco designed the little black dress in 1926, a black dress wasn't considered fancy enough to look good. Until Coco launched a range of women's pajamas in 1918, they were only ever worn by men. Coco was one of the first women to wear trousers. She even included them in her 1930 collection. Coco designed clothes for rich customers, but she came from a poor family and worked hard to build her business.
Anne Frank. During World War II, Anne Frank, a girl who dreamed of becoming a writer, had to go into hiding with her family. The war meant life was very unsafe for Jewish people, like the Franks, because they were persecuted by the Nazi Party. This meant that Jews were treated unfairly and sent to prison camps, even though they had done nothing wrong. The Franks hid in a secret annex, a few concealed rooms in a factory Anne's father ran before the war. They couldn't take many possessions with them, but Anne made sure she took her diary. Nobody knew about their hiding place, apart from trusted friends who brought supplies. Its entrance is hidden behind a bookshelf. Anne poured out all her hopes, frustrations, and fears into her diary. More people who needed to hide came to live with the Franks. Anne found sharing a small space with 8 people difficult. Food was scarce in the annex, but Anne knew she must put up with it. Anne missed her cat, Murche, who she had to leave behind. After 2 years, everyone living in the annex was discovered and sent to prison camps. Tragically, only Anne's father survived the war. As a tribute to his amazing daughter, Otto Frank published Anne's diary. It is a book considered to be one of the most important in history. Anne never stopped dreaming of a better future. Her hope, talent, and bravery has touched the millions of people around the world who have read Anne's diary, Diary of a Young Girl.
Reading is important because it can help develop language skills, because through reading you learn new words. So that was our reading of Kate Pankhurst's Fantastically Great Women Who Changed the World. We hope you enjoyed it. This is Taylor's sgirlup signing off.